So, fun fact, I actually found that subscribe not subscribe thing on YouTube, and turns out 80% of the people who watches my videos are not subscribed. So if you're new, hi, this channel is about to get some actual content soon, so consider staying in for a while. I'm about to reach 3,000 subscribers, so maybe it's time I actually post some real videos. Follow up to the last video, I'm sticking with stickmans. I got a lot of feedback and pretty much everyone is saying that stickman is the way to go. So there's that. Thanks to everyone who gave me feedback on that matter. Today we're gonna talk about character design. Now, when I talk about character design, I talk about my character design, the way I like characters to be designed and the philosophy I follow when making one. So, first off, let's give a definition to good character design. A good character design is a character that can be recognized by the audience just by looking at it, its colors, or its silhouette. Now that we have that out of the way, we're gonna establish an order of topics for today's video. Number 1, examples of good and bad character design. Number 2, analyzing those characters to see what makes them good or bad. Number 3, how do I make a good character design? And number 4, how can you improve already existing designs to make them more recognizable? Since most of my viewers are sticky notes users, this will be talked about with that in mind, so pay attention. Let's try to make animatable good designs. Number 1, good and bad examples. Let's begin with a great design. A design that I very much love and I have been inspired by. This is the design of the Pure Vessel from Hollow Knight. All the designs from Hollow Knight are very much good designs. Hornet, Grim, and the mentioned Pure Vessel. Another very good design is Jaxi by Malone. As we will see later, it's surprisingly good, and I don't know if Malone was aware of what he was doing with his stuff. The last good design we'll be taking a look at today is Ray from Solaris Kingdom. She has some things to talk about, just not what you'd expect. Now on to bad designs, we have all the common sticks with colored eyes and arms. No offense, because some of my friends have these, but they are pretty bad, and I'll explain why. As a final example, I'll use some Genshin Impact designs and compare them to the recent game Zenless Zone Zero. Part 2. Analyzing the designs. So, let's begin analyzing these designs. First off, we have the Pure Vessel. The Hollow Knight works too, but the Pure Vessel is white, and that's my favorite color, so fight me. First off, the Hollow Knight designs on themselves are pretty distinguishable from anything else, period. If you see a Hollow Knight character, you're gonna know it's a Hollow Knight character. So to make it stand out, even for the Hollow Knight cast, the Pure Vessel needs to be special, and special he is. He is by far one of the biggest living characters in the game, and his shell reflects this. His horns are gigantic, and he's the only one with this curved shape, aside from Hornet and the Mantis Lords, as well as having this coat. I'm gonna call it a coat. You can obviously tell who he is. That stance, that figure, that silhouette, it belongs only and only to the Pure Vessel. You can tell who he is just by the shape of his shell alone, which cannot be said of most generic looking bugs in Hollow Nest. Even comparing his shell to the ones from the Mantis Lords, their heads are thinner and have a curve at the top, so at least I would not confuse them. The Pure Vessel is overall an extremely well executed design, managing to be imposing even for what Hollow Knight designs are. I could say the same thing about characters like Grim or the Radiance, but let's move on. The next good design to analyze is Jaxi. Now, this design doesn't shine in the same way as the Pure Vessel. This is not an extremely different character from all the other humanoid characters you'd find, but what does work extremely well is his hair. It single-handedly turns Jaxi from a good design to a good design. By the shape of his hair alone, you could instantly recognize Jaxi, and that's something I do a lot myself. It's a really specific design for Jaxi, and it helps a lot make the character memorable. And something similar happens with Rei. She is a very thin character, and there isn't much bulkiness to her body attachments, or any remarkable shape, so there isn't much to that part. It's pretty much just a skinny girl. But now, let's take this base and add her weird ass Boyd hair and her cool ass hologram cape, and oh my god, she's beautiful. It all comes back again to the point of having a remarkable, instantly recognizable shape that gets tattooed into your brain, and when you see it you say, hey, that's the thing from the character. So with this in mind, let's look at what not to do. Looking first at literally any stick figure design that is just a normal figure with a cool eye color or bracelet or scarf or any combination of these. It does not make your character interesting, memorable, or appealing, since there is nothing in the design that asks the brain to connect a character trait with said character. Everyone has a scarf and a cool eye, but when looked from afar they all look the same, and that's not gonna cut it. It's just a stickman, and anyone can make a stickman, with or without a scarf. On another note, we have Genshin, which doesn't have bad character design per se. Xiao is one of my favorite character designs, period. But now let's take his silhouette and pair them with these guys. None of them exactly stand out from each other, do they? This is Genshin's biggest problem. Its designs aren't bad, but I personally think they are not extremely versatile with their body and overall design philosophy. In contrast to Zenless Sun Zero, you put these three together and tell me you cannot tell them apart. In fact, every design in Zone Zero is way better than anything in Genshin. Part 3. How can you make a good design? Based on what we have been looking at, the most important things I'd say for a good character design are first, a recognizable feature. Make your character have an interesting shape. An easy way of doing this is wacky hair or an interesting mask design, as I often do. You need to let the brain know that this specific feature belongs to your character, so when people see it, they think of your design, and not just any old figure from the Infinite Dojo roster. Or, if you really insist on having bracelets and scarves, have an interesting twist on them. A different scarf design, for example. Something that doesn't subtract from the character's essence, but adds to the memorable factor. And 2. Have an interesting color palette, or one that just works. We didn't have a good example for this, but an attractive color palette can really step up a character design. Of course, taking into account the character's role. You can't have a neon pink soldier in the middle of the battlefield, but you may want to make a character palette contrast a lot with the rest of the cast to signify a different tone or mood. An example of this is not a character, but rather a concept. Hollow Knight chose the color orange for the infection because it contrasted with everything else in the game. If you saw orange, you knew it meant infection. So you can apply rules like these to characters, like how everything cyan I have on the characters means that there is most likely some high-tech component to them. It makes you pay attention. You can make your brain remember those character traits. Choose the most important aspect of your character and make the design emphasize that. If your character is an outcast, give him a shady cloak or a mask to hide his identity. If he's a war veteran, give him a missing limb to represent his days in the battlefield. Let the audience know visually what your character is about. Another thing to note, as explained with the Genshin dilemma, don't let your characters blend in with the rest of the cast. This is something that can happen a lot with things like bases. I found myself recreating every character from scratch. I realized not having a base allowed me to be more versatile and design the characters more freely as I went along, creating more interesting shapes and overall better results. So now with all of this in mind, part 4. How do I improve existing designs? So, this part is more of a community part where I ask people for their designs, and I will judge them on what could improve or if the design is good as it is. So let's take a look at what we got. The first design is made by Mawuth. The design is simple and grounded in reality. There is nothing too crazy here, so let's take the most interesting shape in the design and amplify it to the extreme. In this case being the hair. We give it some Boondocks touch and voila! Look at that. It's not a masterpiece, but it's certainly gonna make the brain remember those character traits. Next up, we have a design made by Biscuits. In this case, he says that the suit is not gonna be common, but in my opinion it's the best design of the two, so it's a shame. The colors on the normal version don't look too well together, and it makes it look weird rather than anything else. I would honestly just send the color palette from the suit to the normal version, fix the hair up a bit, and on the suit version I'd make the plume bigger. Aside from that, solid design. I don't know how the story of this character is, so I'm just basing these changes off of aesthetic alone. But I think this color palette suits him a lot more and it's more pleasing overall, and having only the eyes as green makes them stand out even more. Next up we have Mellow and Not Your Average Fish by Melody Muse. These two are perfect. Recognizable shapes and silhouettes, effective coloring. Mellow is a bit too saturated for my tastes. He looks like a toy, but that's just a me thing. These two are great, no complaints here. The final design we're gonna be checking out today is Crowbar by Stick Studios, who, despite their name, do not have a crowbar anywhere on their design. Speaking of design, it's very cool, simple but effective. He takes the rule of specific trade and sending it to the extreme. He has fucking chin chomps for hands. He has chin chomps for hands. When are you gonna see a dude with 2 chin chomps for hands? He's just really cool. Either way, I hope you understand a bit more how a good design is made, at least on my philosophy. There are a lot of factors that I don't talk about that make a character design memorable even though they might not follow either of the mentioned rules. But that's going a lot more in depth and I don't want to bore you with those things right now. I hope you enjoyed my rant, and if that's the case, a like would be appreciated. So that's all from me for today. I'll see you some other time. Goodbye.